Okay, so lesson 5 is on literal equations, which basically are equations with multiple variables. So they're going to just have all letters basically and no numbers. So if you look down here, like on number 1, you should recognize that formula. It's for the area of a rectangle. So some of them are going to be formulas you recognize. Like number 2 is the formula for area of a parallelogram. 3 is the distance equals rate times time. 4 would be, if you remember in 7th grade, we found interest. So some of them are going to be ones that you recognize. So we're going to start out with the normal equation. So we're going to do these kind of at the same time. So on this one, we would add 5 to both sides. So we would have 2x equals 18. So over here, if we're solving for x, we want to isolate it just like we were doing over here. So the first thing we would do is plus b on both sides. So we would be left with ax equals c plus b. So it's similar to this one, except that we were able to do 13 plus 5, where here we just do c plus b. And then over here, we know we're going to divide by 2, so we get x equals 9. And over here, to get the x by itself, we divide by a. We divide by a. So we have x equals, so this is my answer right here, c plus b divided by a. And we just leave it like that. So it kind of makes more sense when you know like what the formula, like if we were looking for the area of a rectangle and they gave us the area and they gave us the length, we know we probably divide those, but doing this helps us understand that. So the similarities and differences is the similarity would be that both types of equations, we use opposite operations. So we use the inverse operations. Operations. And I know I'm not writing very neatly. It's hard to with my finger, but you can listen to it. So that means like over here it was minus b, we added b. We do that over here. Minus 5, we add 5. So the difference is the literal equations, they don't simplify nicely because there's, a bunch of, it's not going to just be x equals 2. It's going to be this whole thing here. All right, so if we're solving for W, we think, okay, the L is being multiplied by W, so we're going to divide by L on each side. So we have A over L equals W. Okay, you also have to look what letter you're solving for. Solving for the H, so we're going to divide by B on both sides, and we have A equals, whoops, sorry. What are we solving for? H? Oh, my bad. Forget that. We're going to have H on this side, and we have A over B. Okay, we're solving for T. So divide by R. So D over R equals T. So like in an example of a real life one, if we were solving for T, which is time, we would do the distance that you drove divided by the rate that you were driving, your speed, and that would give us how long it would take you. Okay, if we're solving for T here, so this is an interest one. So remember, principal was like the amount that you would borrow. The rate would be like if you were getting a 5% interest rate. T is how long it is in years, and then I is your interest that you're paying. So if we're going to solve for T, we have to divide by the P, and you can divide by R at the same time because you can do them separate, but they're going to end up both being divided. So we have T equals, you have the interest I divided by PR. Okay, solving for H, same thing. We're going to have V divided by LW equals H. So if you recognize that, that's the volume. Length times width times height. Okay, here's the area of a circle formula. So these will help you if when you're not, when you have weird problems where you aren't solving for the area, where they give you the area and you know pi, but you're looking for the radius, or on here when they give you the volume and you know the length and width and you're looking for the height. Okay, so this one we're solving for r. So with r, we're first going to divide by pi on each side. So that gives us a over pi equals r squared. And then we need to get the r by itself. So the opposite of squaring a number is taking the square root. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. So that becomes r equals, and then you just leave it like this. So for space, I'm going to just circle that. Okay, number 7, we have m equals c minus s. So we're solving for c. So to get the c by itself, we have to add s. So we have m plus s equals c. Solve for m here. We're dividing by v, so we're going to times by v. So we have m equals, and then we're going to do d times v. So those were your basic ones, like a one-stepper. Now we're going to have multiple ones. And so remember, you always do the opposite of PEMDAS. So you always add and subtract first. And then you always do the multiplying and dividing, just like ones with normal numbers. And then we're going to remove fractions by, and this is where it's really important to use the reciprocal, otherwise it'll be confusing. So when we're solving for h, the first thing we're going to do is to get rid of that fraction, we're going to times by 2. So we have 2a equals bh. Because if we take 1/2 and we times by 2, that gets rid of it. These cancel out. And now we're going to divide by b. So we have 2a over b equals h. And that's your answer. So you can go ahead and pause it if you want, or wait for me to talk about them. Solving for b, we're going to times by 3. So we have 3b equals bh. Then we're dividing by b. So we have 3b over b. Whoops, solving for b, my bad. This should be a b. And this should be an h. Just seeing if you guys are awake. Okay, the next one, solving for m. So we're first of all going to times by 2 to get rid of the fraction. So we have 2k equals mv squared. And then we're going to divide by v squared. So we have 2k over v squared equals m. And that's it. Okay, solving for b, we're going to times by d, because when you do that, these cancel out. So we have a, d, or dA, doesn't matter how you write it, equals b plus c, and now we minus c. So make sure you do AD minus C. Okay, again, go ahead and pause if you want to think of them on your own. I'm going to go ahead and pause it and write some in. Okay, so now I have forgotten where I left off, but if you need to pause it to look at my answers or to see what I did. I didn't show all my steps. There's just not enough room when I have to write on here. But you can see the answers to 11 and 12, 13 and 14, 15 and 16, 17 and 18 bring in the fraction. So to get rid of that fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal of 9/5 and do it to both sides. So we have 9/5 c And then we add the 32. And on this one, we multiply by 2 over 1. And then we're still left with this. So then I divide by h, since it's multiplying by this quantity. And then I add, or minus the b2. So this last one is 2a over h minus b2 equals b1. Definitely practice the homework for this.